surrounded by all these little fairies that are dancing.
Right.
And those would be trooping fairies. Those would be social fairies. They're gathered together in a group. But many fairies are solitary fairies. They prefer to be left alone. Goblins, for example, tend to be...
maybe not even a preference of being left alone, but when you think of, like, a fairy who we were talking about, the Lady of the Lake, or something along that lines, well, just as far as residence goes, that, that denotes that they would have to be a solitary fairy because the lake can only have one Lady of the Lake, or, there's not Stream Fairy number 1, Stream Fairy number 2, Stream Fairy number 5.
Right. And, like the Marrow, for example, are the more social version of that because they are said to have castles under the waves, or homes under the waves, where they live together with other Marrow. It's just the female Marrow tend to be not real good with commitment, let's just say.
Gotcha. Yes.
So, whereas, the other water fairies... The Corrigan are not trooping fairies. They prefer to be alone. Now, the Norse tradition recognizes 4 kinds of fairies: elves, dwarves and trolls, nisses, and nex, mermen, and mermaids. So those are the Norse fairies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we briefly touched on this in the first show, but one of my favorite fairies is the Cluricaun, related to the leprechauns. The leprechauns make shoes. The Cluricaun make drink.
Oh, there you go.
Now, the Welsh tradition had the Ellyllon, which are the elves, the Coblenau, or the mine fairies, the Boacabod, or the household fairies. And to anybody of Welsh, I apologize, I cannot say any of these correctly. The Gwaregod Anwen, the fairies of the lakes and streams, and the Gwyllion, or the mountain fairies. Now, interestingly enough, Welsh fairies had steeds.
Horses.
Hmm?
Was it just horses, or was it like butterflies and that kind of thing?
No. They were the corgi.
Oh yeah, we've talked about that in the last episode too.
Right. The corgi were Welsh fairy dogs.
Aw, that's so cute.
That's why they call them the Welsh corgis.
Because they're from Wales. That's where they were bred.
Okay, that's kind of adorable. Now Krysta really loves corgi dogs.
Ooh.
Trust me, if we had the money, I'd go and buy one. I think corgis are wonderful, but...
Wonderful dogs, but they do shred a lot.
Okay, but they probably don't poop in my bathroom, and that's a good thing.
No, they're more loyal dogs than that.
So...
They'll definitely take it outside and walk it.
Now, we're briefly going to cover the fairy courts, because the social fairies, their world was broken into 4 courts, and each court represents a different season, and each season represents a different kind of fae. For example, the winter court frowned upon humans. They're more inclined to talk openly about their cruelty. They tend to look more evil. Now, by saying more evil, that could be different for different people.
I was saying earlier, the definitions of...
Right. So, and the winter court has free reign over winter solstice and autumn equinox months, meaning that's when they tend to be seen. They're strongest at that time. And the Fae of this court tend to be sensible, chilled, dark, and baleful.
They are the epitome of winter.
Yep. Now, the spring court are the calmer Faes. They tend to be a bit more benevolent. The Fae of the spring court are polite and bright-eyed. They're more apt to lure humans in with sweet dew. They also have blossoming curiosity. They're strongest during the ends of winter and throughout the spring season. Despite the summer court having reign, these Fae are peppy, quiet, seductive, emotional, and vernal. The epitome of spring.
I see.
Then there's the summer court.
Oh, the summer court.
The Fae of this court are generally considered more polite or mannered, although they're still very capable of cruelty, but will be more hush-hush about it. The summer court has free reign over the summer solstice and spring equinox months, and are strongest during that time. They tend to be frivolous, venereal, hot-headed, and what have you. They are the epitome of summer.
I see.
Then there's the autumn court, which is seen as an equally malevolent side of the Fae in comparison to winter, but a bit more middling. The Fae of this court are generally the ones doing the dirty work and trooping. However, these Fae have much nicer sides than any of the Fae and return great favors. The autumn court is strongest during the ends of summer and throughout the autumn season. They are strong, mysterious, eerie, and ravishing all the same, and of course devious, the epitome of autumn. Which, how autumn is devious, I don't know, but...
Have you met my niece?
True enough. And so I decided to finish this off with...
Love you, Paige.
Love you, Paige.
We love you.
And next time I see you, I promise I'm going to tickle you, just so you know.
No. No! Not in the middle of an episode, sir.
So... in Ireland, years ago, it was traditional that if you were roaming the countryside, you could lodge with somebody for a night. All you had to do was be willing to work and or, even more important, tell a story.
I see.
Well, think about it. Back in the day, no Netflix, no internet.
Well, yeah.
Books were rare. So people didn't have a lot to do.
Mm.
So having a stranger come in with a story nobody had heard, people would come from miles just to hear it. It made you the center of a social life that normally you weren't part of.
Right.
So this is a story of a young man named Justin. He wandered from town to town in the Irish countryside in the late 1700s. And as I said, in that time it was not uncommon for travelers to knock on strangers' doors for a place to stay or a meal to eat, usually in exchange for a menial task or, most prized of all, a good story. And so it was, Justin traveled the roads of his native Ireland. Not being a particularly imaginative lad, he didn't have a story to tell. But young and strong, he often worked for his lodging. One day he came to the home of an old man. Now the man had plenty of firewood and his farm chores were all done, but what he greatly desired was a story and good companionship. The young man offered none of the former and precious little of the latter. The older man sent him to sleep on hay in the barn and bade him depart in the morning. The young man went to the barn and quickly fell asleep. He was shocked then when he awoke at midnight with two wizened figures with red caps standing over him. The creatures smiled, pulling him from the floor, and the man was very frightened, for he had heard of these creatures, called redcaps. They were known to be malevolent and cannibalistic, which is probably a misnomer, because they enjoyed eating people, not other redcaps, but whatever.
Sure.
With great glee, one crawled on Justin's back and held on with claws that had the strength of iron. The other began to whip Justin, who ran as fast as he could with the redcap clinging to his back. All night long he ran, as the redcap's claws tore the flesh of his back, and the second redcap whipped him to drive him even faster. The redcap on his back felt heavier and heavier with each passing moment, as if he was carrying a great statue of lead upon his back. And then, just as dawn was beginning to break, young Justin discovered a church which he ran for with the last of his strength. He hurled himself through the gateway and into the churchyard just as the red cap detached itself from his back. The red cap stared at him for a second, and then one said, "Sure, and you've spent a rough night, Justin, but mayhap the next time you are asked for a story, for a place to stay, and a bit to sup, you'll have a right story to tell."
Well, that was kind of a crappy way to go about it, but, it sounded...
I mean, at least it has a story
their
now.
hearts were in the right place, sorta.
Well, red caps are in the solitary fairy camp. Their caps are red because they dye them in human blood.
Mm-hmm.
They're not known for their niceties. So this is a rare story for red caps.
Mm-hmm.
One where they've actually done something kind of nice.
Yeah.
But they went about it in typical bloody-minded red cap fashion.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And red caps are another one that have been seen in the past, 10 years, I want to say, in the wilds of Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not like the Fae aren't seen anymore. They are. And in fact, we'll talk about puckwudgies, which are essentially a Native American Fae. They're seen all the time.
Well then.
So, that is our episode on the Fae.
Episode on the Fae.
Yes. So,
Yes.
Any thoughts, babe?
I like fairies. Even creepy ones, I guess. See? I have a kitty cat fairy on my phone.
Yes. I didn't find any kitty cat fairies in my research, but
I feel like you didn't look hard enough because they're too girly for you, but that could just be me.
What about you, Krysta? What do you think?
I think that, fairies, while sometimes they are mischievous, yes, they are very interesting creatures, along with many other creatures that we have explained on the show, and I do agree with Mom in the fact that we do put some pressure on the other creatures that are living in this world, and I think we should show them a little bit more respect. Just a little bit.
She's a smart kid.
Well,
Where do you think I get that from?
You get it from Dad. It's okay.
I get it from both you and Mom.
Aw,
you're so neat. Well,
that's the end of our show, so should we talk about Twitter?
We should say our goodbyes, yes, and our thank yous to Paige, who did our artwork.
Yay, Paige!
Paige of Reverie True Crime. Thank you, Paige. You're the best.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Gnurk of the Big Dumb Fun Show, who had us on there. Thank you, Aaron, for promoting us and getting us a few more listens. Bill Barrett, who does our theme music. Thank you very much, Bill. Of course, you can go on Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee and support us that way monetarily. Buy Me a Coffee, any of our donations there get split between Team Podcast and Team Bunny. Patreon, you get to choose.
You get to choose.
And if you support Team Bunny, our Krysta does some of her famous artwork just for you.
Yeah, you guys love my artwork. No, you don't, or else you would never be following my Instagram. But alright! I haven't posted in there in a while. I'm not judging you guys. It's okay.
Now, you can find us on Twitter at plot_family. You can find Krysta there as F. Crystalline.
Yes. Careful, though. I might bite. No. Dad.
I do have a Twitter now, but there's nothing on it yet. So next show, I should be ready to roll, though, and give my Twitter information.
Ooh, ours going to be on Twitter.
Maybe.
Take that, no such thing as a fish. Anna Chazinski doesn't have a Twitter.
That's right. I got one just because Anna doesn't have one. That's exactly why it was.
Yeah. Just You know, maybe it's because Mom